um, patient advocacy group. We're a nonprofit. And if any of you were here a couple of years ago, I did talk to you all, and this is one of my favorite sleep conferences. And so thank you for being so welcoming. And today I have the privilege of introducing one of our Rising Voices speakers. So we take people living with sleep disorders and we train them to share their stories at conferences, for companies, like in doctor's offices. And I'm really excited for Chelsea's presentation. So before I introduce her, just to let you know that we have a really short survey where we collect data about like, you know, how the talk went, what you learned, that kind of thing. So it really helps us out as a nonprofit if you guys can. I'll come find you and make you fill it out. And so Chelsea Cataldi is a world traveler who enjoys creating things with her hands. She was diagnosed with type 1 narcolepsy in 2010 while living in Japan. As a speaker with Project Sleep's Rising Voices program, Chelsea shares her story to increase awareness and empathy for people with narcolepsy and also sleep apnea, but that's not and to help others support those living with this chronic neurological condition. So without further ado, Chelsea, take it away.
Well, this is going to be interesting. I have a clicker, a microphone, and notes, and 2 hands.
So I guess I can put them, if I put them here, will it touch the screen and anything?
Unless you're going to move the screen.
Okay, I should know if the keyboard would. Okay. Thank you so much for this invitation and having me. I'm really excited to share my story today, and I'll answer any questions you have at the end. So as she said, I have type 1 narcolepsy. I'm on stimulants so that I can be here and talk to you today. Unfortunately, a side effect of the stimulants is I tend to like kind of lose track of what I'm saying and veer off. So I'm going to stick very tightly to my notes because my story, I have so much really good information I want to share with you. If I was speaking shorter, I wouldn't need them, but this is a long talk, so I'm going to really stick straight to these, okay? So I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am the youngest of 3 children. My parents had 3 kids, 3 and under at one time. We're all obviously very close in age. That's me with the glasses. Nobody made fun of me growing up. Nobody, not at all. My mom is a retired orthodontic assistant, and my dad is a pilot, still flying at 76 years old. So we traveled a lot and we all have nice smiles. I was about 2 years old when my night terrors began. I had night terrors and nightmares. The one I remember the most was this really scary witch that she lived under my bed. She just loved it there. And she had these really long nails and she would just scratch and claw trying to get through my box spring and mattress to get to me. And I would have this recurring nightmare so frequently that I would just grab my little Smurfette sleeping bag and I would drag it down the hall with my pillow to my parents' bedroom, and I would make a little just bed on the floor next to my mom's side of the bed, and I'd sleep there for the rest of the night. When I was about the same age, my mom enrolled me in dance classes because I would stand in front of the oven in the kitchen and use the handle as a bar and the window as a mirror. I don't think I've ever been subtle a day in my life. I was really, really active as a kid. I loved the outdoors. Oh, I went way too far. Hold on. Okay, there we go. I was really active as a kid. We did a lot of stuff outdoors, and I was not a sleepy kid. I did not take naps. I didn't need them. I definitely was not a sleepy kid. When I was in high school, I experienced a trauma that really disrupted my sleep. I was experiencing for the first time this really heaviness on my chest, and it was really scary. It's hard to describe, but I couldn't scream out to my parents. I couldn't move. And there was nothing I could do that would make it go away. But my parents made sure that I went through counseling and I worked through it and my sleep improved. In my early 20s, I backpacked across Europe with my good friend Michelle. That's us in Innsbruck, Austria, I believe, where they have the Olympic Games. I'm in the ring on the left with my cute short haircut. And we had the time of our lives. Michelle and I, she grew up next door to me, and we had always planned to go to Europe together. And we then also planned to move to New York City together, which I did at 23 when Michelle moved to Arizona with her boyfriend. But I love New York. It's such an amazing place. I had a bad breakup and I started having these recurring nightmares where I was being like sacrificed, like burned at the stake, like Joan of Arc sacrificed. You'll probably notice a theme that my emotions affect my dreams and my sleep very much. They have my whole life. So I had a great job in New York. I worked at an investment bank. I was an executive assistant to two of the senior partners. I had our offices overlooked Central Park. This is literally taken from what I could see from my desk every day. I did not want to lose this job, but I was having nightmares so much every night that I would have to call my boss and my doctor, call my boss and tell him I've had nightmares so much tonight. I need just a couple more hours of sleep and then I'll be into work. He was really understanding, thankfully. I don't know too many people, they call in sick, but I don't know too many people that call in for nightmares. But I sought out a Jungian psychoanalyst who, this is before like Google could tell you where to look. So I literally called NYU and was like, do you have anyone who does lucid dream therapy? And they introduced me to somebody and I learned to lucid dream and it was so helpful. I was able to recognize when one of my dreams was going into nightmare territory and I could either change the direction and then really enjoy a nice vivid dream, or I could wake myself up. But I was able to go back to my life as it was and not worry about the dreams I was having. After about 6 years of living in New York City, I really missed the open spaces and slow-paced life of New Mexico. So I moved back to New Mexico in 2006, and I met this handsome guy there, who is my husband, Nick, who's sitting in the back. And he was serving in the military, and I was working full-time for my uncle's electrical contracting firm and managing his office, and I also had gone back to school for nursing. I loved nursing school so much. I took to it more than I even expected. I studied art history before. This was vastly different, but I really loved the labs and I worked with human cadavers, and it really deepened my respect and interest in research and in science. I was super busy with work and school, and my husband was really busy with his work, and he was also studying aeronautics. But he said to me, like, want to just come over and do homework together and hang out? And we did. And I'm so thankful because he was super supportive of my goals. And then in 2000, oh, that's right. We got married in Hawaii. We eloped. And then in late 2009, we moved to Okinawa, Japan. Not long after I arrived in Okinawa, I had an adverse reaction to the H1N1 vaccination. I had a severe headache and a very painfully stiff neck that lasted for weeks and weeks. I had called the doctor's office literally the same day it happened, and they just were like, if you don't have a breathing problem or a rash, give it 2 weeks. And so 2 weeks later, I went in after having this same pain that persisted, and I wasn't able to sleep because I was in so much pain. And the doctor prescribed muscle relaxers. He said that I was in a vicious cycle of this pain and not sleeping, and I needed to be able to sleep in order for my body to heal. So I took muscle relaxers for a couple of weeks, and it really helped. I was able to start sleeping better. The office that I was working in, I was a commander secretary, and I was the only American secretary, and there were 7 Japanese secretaries I worked with. I befriended them very quickly. I was super excited to move to Japan because I had visited 20 countries before I married my husband. I love learning about other cultures and other places. So living overseas was like a dream come true. I missed the part where I had decided to push off clinicals for nursing school to move to Japan, and I was just going to petition to do them when I got back, but that obviously didn't happen. So while I was speaking with the secretaries, I would ask them so many questions about their culture. And the Okinawan culture and their religion revolves around ancestry worship. They worship the spirits of the dead, of the living world, just everything, all of the interactions with the spirits. Even their architecture represents it, like their shopping malls don't have walls in between stores. It's almost like a huge department store, but it's a shopping mall because it allows the spirits to move freely. And I was also told not to leave like laundry in piles on the floor because spirits like to hang out there. Helped me keep my house tidy. So one day when I was standing there talking with the secretaries on a coffee break in front of one of their cubicles, this banana spider started jumping down the wall, a little like the cubicle wall, because there were no real walls. And she went to squish it. And one of the other ladies said, no, don't squish it. It's bad luck to kill a spider. And she said, only before 3 p.m. I was like, okay, so it's only bad luck to kill a spider before 3 o'clock? God, it just was so funny to me. But I started laughing and this weird sensation came over me. And I dropped my coffee on the floor. My mug broke into pieces. I spilled it everywhere. And I was so caught up with the mess I had just made that I cleaned it up, but I was like, that's not right. Like, what was that sensation? What was that feeling? It was just this weakness. Well, the next week, I broke 2 more coffee mugs laughing, and I knew something was not right with me. Around the same time, I went a whole page left. Hold on, sorry. Around the same time, I started having things happen at night as well. I was sleeping and I awoke to see a man who had broken into our house who was approaching me to strangle me, and he started strangling me. And then something shifted and I thought, am I sleeping? Is this a dream? Did I pass out from being strangled? Like, my husband's next to me. How is he not protecting me? He's a big, burly, and protective guy, right? And then I was like, oh my God, this must be a nightmare. This must be a nightmare. And then I felt my husband stroking the back of my hair. And I thought, oh, normally he sleeps through my nightmares. That's so nice. He's comforting me. And I was facing the wall. And so I rolled over to face him and thank him. And he was facing the other direction, dead asleep. Right? Yeah, that's how I felt too. So I was like all happy about talking about spirits during the day. Not so happy with the idea of maybe them visiting me in my nights in my house. But I knew like, this is not right, you know? So these were my nights. They were having this, I was having stuff like this all the time. So at work, I would be super sleepy and no walls. So anyone could just see me falling asleep at my desk. So I'd go to the bathroom, I'd sit on the toilet and I'd prop my head up against the stall wall and I'd take a little cat nap. And then I'd go back to my desk. Well, I went to the doctor because I was really concerned about dropping things. And it wasn't coffee mugs I was dropping anymore. Now, when I left, I dropped to the floor. So I went to the doctor and I told him, it's the same doctor I had seen a few months before for the neck and headache. I said, listen, I'm losing control of my body. I have MS or a brain tumor or something. Something's wrong with my brain. You know, I don't know what's going on. And I'm telling him everything. I'm like, I ate avocados this day when I did this. Like, you know, I literally like took copious notes with every incident, what I was eating, you know, where I was, what time of day it was. The one thing, laughter, was the constant. And he said, when that happens, is it bilateral? And I was like, bilateral? Bi, both sides, lateral, both arms? Yeah. Wow, weird. That's one thing I hadn't written down. Like, always, it's always bilateral. And he said, interesting. Tell me about your sleep. And I said, you don't want to know about my sleep. And he leaned in and he said, no, I am particularly interested in hearing about your sleep. And I said, well, if I tell you, you're going to think I'm crazy. And I know that if I preface something by saying, you're going to think I'm crazy, then it makes me sound even more crazy. But I told him, listen, like, I think my house is haunted. And he said, are you sleepy during the day? And I was like, did you not just hear what I told you about what's happening at night in my house? Of course I'm sleepy during the day, but I'm only sleepy during the day because I can't sleep at night. And he said, I think you might have narcolepsy. And I was like, I don't have narcolepsy. I don't fall asleep eating. I don't fall asleep standing up. I don't fall asleep while I'm talking to people. And he said, that's a common misconception about narcolepsy. I'm going to send you to the pulmonologist on base, and we're going to get you a referral for a sleep specialist. I was like, okay, but could I also go to the neurologist and get an MRI of my brain? And he said, okay, do a sleep study. If that's not it, yes, I'll send you to the neurologist. It's like, okay. So, okay, yep. So I went and saw the pulmonologist, and he submitted me, his name is Dr. Crowley, it was awesome. And he submitted a referral for a sleep study, but I had to go off base to a civilian clinic in Okinawa, a Japanese clinic, because they didn't have the equipment to do it on base, which meant I was gonna have to pay out of pocket, and I was gonna have to make sure that the insurance covered it. It took months to get all of it together. In the meantime, the doctor told me, which most doctors don't, go home and Google narcolepsy and look up the symptoms and see if they don't relate to what you're experiencing. So I went home and I Googled it, and oh my God, it was textbook. They could have been writing about me specifically. I had every single symptom. My husband came home from work and I told him, I have narcolepsy. Like, no intro. And he said, I thought you just had MS or a brain tumor. I was like, touche. I should have led with, the doctor thinks I have narcolepsy. And I read to him what it said. So, that's me at the Okinawan clinic. You would think that I knew one day I was going to be talking about this, because I actually took pictures of everything. That's the bed I slept in. That to the right is a bean bag. That's the pillow that is super tiny and flat. And there was just a little TV in there that played only Japanese TV. So no wonder I slept like a lot. But they were so nice and accommodating. It was a really interesting experience. Let's see here. Okay, so if you don't know, for narcolepsy is a chronic neurological disorder that impairs the brain's ability to regulate the sleep-wake cycle, and it affects 1 in 2,000 people. I'm just going to get a little bit of water because my mouth is really dry. Another side effect of stimulants. Okay. So I'm just going to break this down super easy and quickly for you. So the stages of sleep are stage 1, non-REM, which is a really short period between wakefulness and sleep. Stage 2, non-REM, it's light sleep before you enter into deep sleep. Stage 3 is still non-REM, and it's a deep sleep that you need to feel refreshed in the morning. And then you have REM sleep, which is also important, which is vivid dream sleep. And when you're in REM sleep, your breathing and your heart rate and your brain activity is very similar to when you're awake. So it is not restful. If you have nights where you've like had crazy dreams, like say you're running from someone and you wake up and you felt like you went on a marathon, that's why. Because your body is feeling like it does, or your brain's feeling like it did when you're sleeping. With narcolepsy, we have REM that you go through these stages, right? This is the stages you go through to get to REM, and it can take usually on average 90 minutes. It depends, different times of the night and the different cycles. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. So 90 minutes is what the average is, what they say that it should take. For someone with narcolepsy, we can skip all of those and go directly into REM sleep. Not 90 minutes, like 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever it is. So when we do that, we bring our dreams We dream reality with us into our dreams, and we bring our dreams with us back into reality, which makes complete sense when I learned this. Basically, my sleep is like a playlist that's on shuffle and repeat simultaneously. I told Emma last night, like, with soldiers, it's like left, right, left, right, left. If it's like 1, 2, 3 rim, mine is like rim, 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 rim. With dreaming in each of them. The symptoms of narcolepsy: excessive daytime sleepiness. That's when I went into the bathroom and put my head up against the wall. Cataplexy, that's what is me dropping to the floor or dropping my mugs. Cataplexy is, let's see here. In technical terms, it's described as a bilateral loss of muscular tension triggered by an emotion. That's cataplexy. The hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations are hallucinations upon falling asleep and upon waking up. I was having both of those. That was someone breaking into my house. That was someone, not my husband, stroking my hair. Not anyone really. It's just a hallucination, right? And there were times where I literally felt something slap me, and I would wake up and I could still feel the stinging on my skin. So it's really a hallucination. It is not a dream. 2 other common symptoms are disrupted nighttime sleep and sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is what I had when I was a teenager and I couldn't move and couldn't scream out. Now, these symptoms, sleep paralysis and hallucinations, they can happen to anyone. They're symptoms of narcolepsy especially, but anybody who's really chronically sleep deprived can have these. I've talked to a lot of women who've had children, and when they were pregnant or when they first had babies, they said they experienced this because they were so sleep deprived. But if you're having it all the time like I was, I would have it like 10 or 12 times a night. I'd be in a cycle of it that just repeated over and over and over and over again. And then automatic behavior. I had some automatic behavior. One time I was typing up a protocol document for the military, which was going to be published. And in the middle of a sentence, I wrote vanilla ice cream for some random reason, which got caught by somebody else when they were proofreading it. Not impressive. There's 2 types of narcolepsy: narcolepsy type 1, which is with cataplexy, which is what I have, and narcolepsy type 2, which is without cataplexy. So after I waited about a week after I did my sleep study, and I went back to the Nakamura clinic, and I met with, for the very first time, Dr. Nakamura himself. My husband came with me to get the diagnosis, and we had to pay $2,000 cash up front, but thank God I got it reimbursed. And Dr. Nakamura, when he was giving me my diagnosis, he said, "What did you think was happening to you?" He was speaking of my hallucinations. And I said, "I thought my house was haunted." And he said, he laughed, like full belly laugh, like Santa Claus. And he said, "Old way of thinking." And it's an old way of thinking. And it really cushioned the blow of the words he spoke right before that: severe narcolepsy with cataplexy. I look back at it now and I had no idea how profound those words were about old way of thinking, because if I didn't change the way I thought, I wouldn't have been here with you today. I had to really change the way that I thought about life, because at that moment, at that moment, I thought, I'll just take some meds and I'll be fine. But then it got a little worse. So the treatments for narcolepsy are usually nighttime and histamine-directed medications to decrease excessive daytime sleepiness and cataplexy, wake-promoting or stimulant medications to increase alertness, antidepressant medications to decrease cataplexy, scheduled daytime naps, and then coping strategies, social support, such as meetup groups or social media. I cannot stress enough social support. It cannot be what's the word I'm looking for? Rated. Yeah, thank you. Underrated or underemphasized. It really should be prescribed with medication. Social support should. And then improvements in general health through sleep hygiene, diet, and exercise. Because you're not sleepy or anything. It's easier said than done, but it is very helpful. So after I had my appointment, I went to a follow-up with my primary care doctor because the pulmonologist was deployed. And my primary care doctor, unbeknownst to me, had moved back to the United States. And in walked a woman whom I had never met before. And I handed her my PSG and my multi-sleep latency test that said severe narcolepsy. And she looked at it and she looked at me like, and what am I supposed to do with this? And I said, well, this is my follow-up. I need treatment. She said, I know nothing about narcolepsy. I don't think I've ever even met anyone with narcolepsy, and I sure as heck don't know how to treat it, but I'll go look it up and I'll be back in a few minutes. It did not inspire confidence, to say the least. But she was honest, we'll give her that. So I'd rather be someone be honest, honestly, than just be like, oh yeah, let's throw this at it. So it was decided that I would go to the mental health clinic and see the psychiatrist, because the psychiatrist would know more about the medications that they use to treat narcolepsy than most people. I had a security clearance. I was afraid I would lose my security clearance if I went to the mental health clinic. I should have been afraid that I'd be able to work again, but that was my concern at the time. They assured me, oh, you'll be fine. We'll just do it as a referral for a prescription consultation, which they did. The psychiatrist also didn't know much about narcolepsy or how to treat it, but she was very nice. She did a lot of research and she tried her best. The first 3 medications she put me on made things a lot worse. I was put on a tricyclic antidepressant, which made my hallucinations tremendously worse. I was given Ambien to sleep, which did not help. It made me really tired the next day. And then I was put on an SNRI, which gave me what I believe now probably was, oh, I can't think. Yeah, like where you can't control your movements. Yeah, no, not Tourette's. Yeah, dyskinesia. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks. Perimenopause and sleepy brain. So I couldn't stop moving my tongue in my mouth. So much so that my tongue started swelling. So I went to the emergency room and they were like, stop the medication. Thank God I was on the lowest dose, because that medication can be very difficult to get off of. And I was on the very lowest dose still, and I was able to get off of it. I decided I didn't want to be a guinea pig anymore. And my husband at this point was going to be going to Afghanistan for 8 months, and my social support system was a hemisphere away. So I thought, I'll find a sleep specialist in New Mexico. I need some water, sorry. I'll find a sleep specialist in New Mexico. They'll be able to get me started on a treatment. I'll get on it. I'll come back to Japan and life will go back to normal. Not so easy. I couldn't find someone in New Mexico, at least through making phone calls. And I ended up contacting the Stanford Narcolepsy Center in California, which is when I realized that the link between the H1N1 vaccination and my adverse reaction to it probably had triggered narcolepsy. They were doing research on the potential link between the two. So I flew out to Palo Alto to Stanford and enrolled in their research program. And they got me in touch with a neurologist sleep specialist in New Mexico, who's 4 hours from where my parents lived. And I flew back to New Mexico. My mom drove me to Alamogordo, New Mexico. And he was fantastic. He knew a lot about narcolepsy and cataplexy. He got me started on a nighttime treatment, and I was put on an amphetamine-based stimulant. It was really daunting to start this nighttime medication because it's so heavily sedating. I did it for the first few nights. I didn't notice any difference. And then one morning I woke up so energized. I baked 4 dozen brownies to send to my husband in Afghanistan. And my parents woke up and the kitchen was a disaster. And I was like, ah. And they were like, oh my God, it works. So I was super encouraged, and I went back to Japan and went back to work. So the nighttime, well, when moving back to Japan, I was afraid of taking the medication living by myself, the nighttime medication, because I was afraid that if there was an intruder or maybe a hallucination, that I wouldn't wake up, or if there was an emergency that I wouldn't wake up. So the doctor recommended that I get a dog. And I did. I adopted a 3-month-old puppy who had been rehomed like 5 times and had severe separation anxiety. Probably not what he was expecting when you told me to get one, but she's so desperate for love and affection. And honestly, we just clung to each other through the hard days. And she's almost 15 years old and she's still with us and she's still my best little companion. So my symptoms improved considerably. My cataplexy was still there. I would still drop things on occasion and my head would fall when I would laugh. But I didn't have any more hallucinations. I didn't have any more sleep paralysis. I didn't have any more nightmares. And during the day, I was alert some, but the stimulants gave me anxiety. It was just too much. And I started to clench and grind my teeth all the time. And so I would have jaw pain and headaches from that. But it was still way better than it was before. So my abilities changed, but my interests didn't change, which is really hard. But I was determined that I was still going to do things and enjoy life. I had a really compassionate boss. He let me go home during my lunch break and take a long nap. And if I took an extra long lunch, he was very nice about it. If I needed to lay my head on my desk and take a nap during other times during the day, he didn't care. He was very kind about it. I was very fortunate. And when my husband came home from Afghanistan, the 2 of us were invited to the general's house, the base commander's house, with 12 other couples to do desserts and conversations. I think it was sweets and conversations, it was called, something like that. It was a big deal. And I was super excited because, I mean, I like to get dressed up. I like sweets. I like people. It was just my kind of thing, right? So we went, and when we walked in, there was standing room only, not a seat around, which made me a little nervous. And then my husband handed me a lead crystal cup of lemonade that he got out of a crystal punch bowl. All the desserts were beautifully placed on crystal plates. And I thought, oh my God. And then I found a support pillar in the room, kind of like that one, to lean against. And I felt better. I was like, okay, this is a little better. I'll lean up against this. And then the general's wife started telling really funny stories. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to break this gorgeous cup. And this is going to be so bad. So I handed it to my husband and I said silently to myself, do not laugh, do not laugh, do not laugh. But that was the first time I realized the cataplexy could rob me of joy and laughter in any circumstance. It was really hard. It was really isolating. I've always been a fun-loving person. And the thought of a life of becoming a wallflower and not being able to enjoy circumstances and people was not a future I was interested in. So I was just desperate for somebody that I could relate to. Google. I found a woman who had a blog back when people blogged. And she had done the impossible. She had just graduated law school and had type 1 narcolepsy. She was diagnosed with narcolepsy in law school. It was amazing. I would comment on her blog. She would reply. I had talked to somebody else in the world with narcolepsy. Oh my God. She encouraged people to create a dream journal, an art journal to help them. I was like, I'm gonna do this. I replied. I took pictures of it and showed her. She thought it was awesome. So excited. I mean, it really changes things. It's amazing how much just talking to one person who can relate to you changes everything, right? So then my husband and I had planned to go to China with another military couple, which we did. And they were very understanding. It was the summer. It was so brutally hot and crowded. And I narcolepsy, I can't regulate my temperature as well with it. And when I'm really hot, I get sleepy. And we were in an exhibit with the Terracotta Warriors. If you've ever heard of them, it's a super, super interesting story. To take too long, and that's not what we're here for, so I'm not going to tell you. But we were in the exhibit. It was so hot, and I looked at my husband and I was like, "I need to lay down and take a nap now, like now." Stat. And so we walked out real quick, and there was a picnic table. Thank God, there's a picnic table out there with like a little bench. I sat down, laid my head down, and took a little nap. My husband sat across from me, so I didn't feel so vulnerable sleeping by myself there. And this is where I started the list of where in the world has Chelsea taken naps. Right? It's like a little gym, like instead of Carmen Sandiego, like where in the world has Chelsea taken naps? That's where I started my list. Yeah. We also did the Great Wall of China. Thank God I didn't need a nap there because I don't think there was any comfortable place to do that. Not long after we got back from China, I realized that the medication I was taking was not legal in Japan. We lived on a military base, so thank God it was okay for me to have it there because it was US soil technically, but it came through the mail, which was subject to search from Japanese officials and American officials. And I was not about to give up something that helped me so much and go back to what I was experiencing. So we requested to be sent back to the United States. And they said, yes, that's fine. You can go back to the States. We moved to Sumter, South Carolina, teeny tiny town, yeah, and the Midlands, South Carolina. And I needed to find someone there who could treat narcolepsy. And I mean, it's not like the military didn't know I had this condition. And they assured me that there were plenty of providers. So I called a couple of sleep specialists that were near there. And none of them did nighttime medication for narcolepsy. They only treated the daytime symptoms. And I thought, well, what about the nighttime? That's only half of my symptoms. They wouldn't do it. So I finally did find someone in Columbia, South Carolina. Dr. Bogan is his name. Yeah, I only mention the names of the good ones. Yep, and there are more good ones than bad. He was fantastic. Oh my God, he was so nice. And they were so accommodating with what time they let me do my appointments because I had to drive an hour each way. And he gave me my medications and it was great. And I was having really bad anxiety from the stimulants. He changed my stimulant medication. He put me on an SSRI to help with my anxiety and depression. And it also got my cataplexy to almost nothing in addition to my nighttime medication. Huge, huge benefit. So I started a new job, a part-time job. I was doing secretarial stuff that I had done before for a construction company that was building the housing on the military base. I was working in a job trailer by myself, me and a computer. I couldn't stay awake. I couldn't make it to work on time, even though it was only 15 minutes from my house. I just really, really, really struggled. And I tried so hard, like my health started failing. I started having all kinds of other problems. And I got fired from that job. I had never even been written up at another job. It was devastating. So I decided that I would file for disability. And a career specialist was sent to interview me. And he wrote down that I had, let me see, where is it? I was not capable of skilled work and I had impaired executive function. It was really heartbreaking to hear those words to describe me, but they're true. And even with all of that, it took me 8 years to get disability, being denied, sitting before a judge, being denied. So at this point, my depression was at an all-time low. I felt supported by my loved ones. I can't express how fantastic my husband and my family are. So supportive. But I still felt really alone in my experience. I was at a really low point and I heard Brene Brown give a TED talk, a TEDx talk about the importance of connection and what drives connection. And what drives connection is vulnerability. I was like, well, embracing vulnerability, not as something beautiful and worthy of, but some beautiful and, oh, sorry, not as something comfortable either, not something shameful or comfortable, but something beautiful and worthy of love and connection is the vulnerability that we have. So I have plenty of vulnerability, more than I wanted. And up until this point, vulnerability felt very shameful and very heavy to me. And I thought, if I can use this vulnerability to drive connection, then maybe I'll feel better. And so I looked for a therapist that did cognitive behavioral therapy so I could get my social anxiety under control. And because I knew that my anxiety and depression were driven by my diagnosis and my lack of abilities. And if I could do some cognitive behavioral therapy, maybe that would help. And then I could get out there and meet people. One of the most impactful things that my therapist told me, which by the way, my therapist didn't know anything about narcolepsy. She is now a narcolepsy expert for the most part. She learned everything she could about it. She was amazing. And she said, one of the things that she said I should do is take on small projects, things that I can make that have a tangible outcome. So I can look at it and feel a sense of accomplishment. Because I didn't realize how much of my self-worth was wrapped up in having a career. And without that, my self-worth was nothing. And so my husband got me a sewing machine that did embroidery as well. And I started making kids' clothes. And I made that's one of the first dresses I made. I have no idea who that kid is. They bought it at a craft show and sent me the picture. But it made a big difference. It made a really big difference. And I started to make friends. I made a lot of amazing friends. I played bunco. I did all kinds of stuff. It just changed everything. I got online. I joined support groups online with other people who could relate to me. And I went to a narcolepsy convention and I met hundreds of people like me. And I realized I'm not alone. When I was at the convention and on the support groups, I met so many people and that had narcolepsy who had also gained weight, because that is very common with narcolepsy. I'd gained a lot of weight. And I learned that it wasn't so scary to try new meds. I was encouraged to try new medications because so many people have to try multiple medications before they find what works for them. So there was really so much benefit that comes to having a community, not just from feeling related to, but in just all the way through your journey. I've moved 5 times since moving from Japan, which is a lot of searches for sleep specialists. And we've lived in some pretty rural areas. Almost every doctor that I talked to that I didn't go to, and these are certified sleep specialists, only treated daytime symptoms of narcolepsy, not nighttime symptoms. I don't know of any other condition that a clinician decides to treat half of the symptoms. It didn't make any sense to me. It had to be just because they didn't know. I mean, obviously nobody willfully doesn't treat a patient, obviously. But there was one place that I moved that I didn't have to search for another doctor. And that was in San Antonio. Dr. Crowley, the pulmonologist who helped me get diagnosed, was now the head of sleep medicine at San Antonio Military Medical Center, which is the DoD's largest medical facility and only level 1 trauma facility. He was also running a fellowship of sleep medicine at that hospital, teaching other doctors who had already had specialties that wanted to get an additional specialty in sleep medicine. The first time I spoke to medical providers was speaking to his fellows. He would have me come in and tell them about narcolepsy and my symptoms, and I would just let them ask me whatever questions they wanted to help them later be able to diagnose people. That was the first time that I felt that my experience was valued and respected. And it's just amazing. And I'm still doing it to this day because I don't know. Because I want to help people. And I know you guys are here because you want to help people too, right? I've been fortunate to have a lot of doctors, but Dr. Crowley stands out. When I was preparing this presentation, I went back through some of my paperwork and I read a letter that Dr. Crowley submitted in support of my application for Social Security disability. I had originally applied in 2012. I was denied by a judge in South Carolina. I had to reapply and I was going before a judge this time in Texas. I wish I could read the whole thing that he wrote, but it's very long. But I have some excerpts I'm going to read to you because it really exemplifies the standard of care and level of understanding that I received when I was under his care. In late 2015, Chelsea's husband was assigned to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, where I am currently working. Since then, I've been treating Chelsea again. In the past few years, she's developed additional health problems, including the worsening of her already severe narcolepsy. She has a continual decline in overall health, causing her to have her thyroid removed. She has a pituitary tumor, fibromyalgia, chronic kidney stones, and more. Additionally, she now has moderate sleep apnea and has trouble tolerating her CPAP machine. She's tried multiple masks, but removes them in her sleep. The nature of narcolepsy, which causes her to abruptly wake from REM sleep to a CPAP machine blowing air full blast. A person without narcolepsy wakes gradually over 60 to 90-minute period, making it the waking experience much more peaceful and tolerable. The combination of narcolepsy and sleep apnea can be difficult to treat. Chelsea has received regular treatment from a psychologist since the time of her diagnosis. She's diagnosed with depression and generalized social anxiety disorder. Both depression and anxiety are often comorbid conditions related to narcolepsy. Chelsea puts forth great effort to do what she can to control her anxiety and panic attacks. She works very hard to maintain a positive attitude. I'm impressed by her efforts to make the best of her illness and its persistent impact on her daily life. I have no doubt that Chelsea has made every attempt to do what she can to better her situation. Unfortunately, she's still unable to work. Chelsea told me in her previous disability ruling, it was believed she exaggerated her symptoms. I can assure you, in my capacity as her doctor, she does not exaggerate her symptoms, exclamation point. If anything, she often downplays how hard it is to live with narcolepsy. It's part of her positive nature, in addition to the constant implementation of her cognitive behavioral therapy practices, which help her deal with her anxiety. Chelsea is often found leaning against a wall or a counter if she isn't sitting. She does this to protect herself from falling in the event of a cataplexy attack. She also rarely holds anything in her hands, if at all avoidable. When on the rare occasion she does, she usually is found holding it with both hands in fear of dropping it during a cataplexy attack. Additionally, public transportation isn't feasible for her because she would easily fall asleep and miss her drop off. Not to mention the vulnerability she feels when falling asleep in a situation like that of being on public transportation, causing her anxiety. At the very least, she would need to travel with another individual to assist her in taking public transportation. Reading this now so many years later, it gets me really emotional because I never expected a doctor to understand so much or to let alone know the impact of how narcolepsy has on me personally in my life. He saw me, really saw me. And I had no idea until I read this. I mean, I knew he was great, but I didn't know I was seen. Everybody should be so fortunate to have a Dr. Crowley in their life. And he's only one of, he's one of many who've impacted my life for the better. Others who've helped me along the way are a podcaster named Emma Cooksey. She became an expert on sleep apnea by necessity, much like I have with narcolepsy. She published a 6-week CPAP solutions workbook to help others work through the many issues they encounter or they may encounter. After listening to her podcast, Sleep Apnea Stories, and hearing the many, many, many complications others have had to treat their sleep apnea, I decided to try again. I'd given up trying. I'd tried for 7 years. My main issue is waking up too rapidly and having a mask go full force and just giving me anxiety and tearing it off. Emma worked with me for months and I was finally able to use my mask and tolerate it. Just in time for perimenopause to make my sleep apnea worse, which is awesome because I really needed the CPAP. Perimenopause also now has interrupted my sleep. Even on a heavy duty sedative, I still wake up wide awake. So I, for 2 years, tried to find a gynecologist who would give me hormone replacement therapy. But so many doctors won't treat me because they don't understand narcolepsy and they don't understand the medications I take and they don't understand the interactions. So I asked one of my sleep specialists, because I have two. I have a neurologist who is a narcolepsy specialist, who's also a narcolepsy researcher, who treats my narcolepsy. And I have a pulmonologist who is a sleep apnea specialist who also has sleep apnea. And he treats my sleep apnea. He's amazing. When I have problems with my machine, he'll tell me, over the next week, I'm just going to be playing with the settings to try and make it more comfortable for you. Right? Amazing. Everybody should have that. So I told the pulmonologist at my last appointment a few months ago, about 6 months ago, I'm waking up. I can't find anyone to help me with my perimenopause. And he said, oh, I know a gynecologist in your area who's really great with that. We wrote a paper together on women, on perimenopause and the menopausal transition in women in their sleep several years ago. So he contacted her and said, will you please take an appointment with my patient? And she did. And I started hormone therapy a few months ago and I'm already feeling the benefits. Some people think it's a little weird that I talk to my sleep doctors about all my other problems that I have with my health, but I don't. I do it because there's not any area of my life that narcolepsy does not touch. And my sleep specialists have been my go-to for continuity of care. And continuity of care cannot be stressed enough. Whenever I have questions about something that's going to interact with my sleep medications, I talk to my sleep doctor about it. My other doctors have the confidence of knowing I'm going to run it by my other doctor before I start something. I wish, though, that I had had a dentist who could have warned me about the problem that my oral health was going to have from the constant clenching and grinding and the dry mouth from the stimulants and now the CPAP. I have, from clenching and grinding, I have gum recession and bone loss. We moved, I went to a new dentist for the first time because of the military moving a lot. So I saw a new dentist, but I always went to the dentist for cleanings and they wouldn't even see me because I had too much damage done. I had to see a periodontist. I was like, what? Like I saw a dentist 6 months ago. It couldn't have changed that much in 6 months, right? The periodontist, fantastic. Gave me a bite guard and I've been on it for, I think 4 years. 4 years, wow, time flies. And I've not had any further recession or bone loss. And so far I've been able to stave off needing grafts, which is fantastic. Now, I'm going to share with you 2 alternative stories. Am I coming up on my time? Okay, these are quick for you. Sorry. Okay. I've been given permission to tell these 2 stories. Actually, both of these ladies encouraged me to tell the stories, hoping that it would help other people. This is Kendra. She's 46. She was the first friend I made when we moved to Georgia. And I met her in early 2021. She began having disrupted sleep and excessive daytime sleepiness in 2010. Her doctors put her on sleeping pills. Never sent her to a sleep specialist. Never had a sleep study. 2018, she saw her pulmonologist for her asthma. He sent her for a study for sleep apnea. She had obstructive sleep apnea. In 2021, she had weight loss surgery, which cured her sleep apnea, but she still didn't feel much better. She still had a lot of daytime sleepiness and interrupted sleep. And in 2024, she underwent another sleep study with an MSLT and was diagnosed with narcolepsy type 2. This is Jolene. In December 2024, I received a phone call from my primary care doctor who said, I have a patient who I think has narcolepsy. She has all the symptoms. She has obstructive sleep apnea. She can't tolerate the CPAP. They refuse to give her any other sleep studies. And she is desperate. She works 2 part-time jobs. She has a toddler and she is desperate for help. Can I have her call you? Absolutely. Send her my way. She had already talked to a representative from an ENT and was already scheduled for an Inspire implant because without her sleep apnea being treated, she couldn't do another sleep study and be diagnosed with narcolepsy. So 2 weeks after I talked to her, she had the Inspire surgery done. But while talking to her over the months, I learned that she started having disruptive sleep as early as 7 years old is when she had her first hallucinations. When she was 15, after she had mono, she had really bad sleepiness. She was falling asleep everywhere. And they gave her ADHD medication, put her on stimulants. It didn't help the stimulants, but it heavily affected her moods. She went from being angry and tired to overly stimulated. So at 15 or 16, they diagnosed her with bipolar and put her on mood stabilizers. She was on all kinds of mood stabilizers, which didn't help. She snored, she played hockey. She was 110 pounds, very active. Played hockey, would fall asleep in between periods of the hockey game. Fall asleep while writing notes at her desk in school. She snored so loudly that none of her teammates would room with her on an away game. No one ever sent her for a sleep study. It wasn't until January of 2024 that she, at 29 years old, that she went in for a sleep study. She had severe obstructive sleep apnea, couldn't tolerate the CPAP. So that's why she went and got the Inspire device. It has helped her quite a bit. She had to get off of all of the mood stabilizers she was on, which she had been on for 15 years, and they heavily impact REM. And she tapered off of them over a period of time. She was diagnosed with idiopathic hypersomnia, but it is believed she probably has narcolepsy type 2, and they're going to redo another MSLT after they've been out of her system for a little bit longer. So she's now been on medication for about 6 to 8 weeks, nighttime medication and stimulants, and she's already seeing a lot of improvement after having the idiopathic hypersomnia diagnosis. While preparing to speak at the Sleep 2024 conference with Emma, I spoke to the Sleep Research Society. I came across a 2014 report by Stanford, which claims that an estimated 25% of people with narcolepsy also have sleep apnea. That is not accurate to the population of my peers with narcolepsy that I know. It's not represented in that. I'm very fortunate that I developed sleep apnea from weight gain after I was diagnosed with narcolepsy, because diagnosing narcolepsy after being diagnosed with sleep apnea is incredibly difficult. The last time I was at my DME's office, I was told that she has a patient with narcolepsy that can't tolerate the CPAP. She's already been with sleep apnea, already been diagnosed with narcolepsy. Her sleep doctor refuses to treat her narcolepsy until she has her sleep apnea under control. I understand there are very valid reasons for that. I get it. There's heavily sedative medications that we take at night that will slow your breathing and could be dangerous, super dangerous for her. And I'm sure there are many other valid reasons that I don't know. But as a patient, it seems like cruel and unbelievable and cruel and unusual punishment to not be treated for something that you know you have. So hopefully we can find ways to diagnose it better, right? Hopefully someone in here has ideas of technology, of how to read the sleep studies or different ideas, because you have so much more knowledge than I do. But we're working on this together, and I'm super excited about that. Am I too late? Should I cut it? Okay, let me come closing. Okay, here we go. My mom has cancer. I treat her. Skip. Okay, I'll just say this. Having the perspective of other people who know what you're going through can't be encouraged enough. So many people avoid to talk about hard experiences, but I found that those are the threads that weave the tapestry that connects all of us together, which is why I'm telling you about these hard things today in hopes that it will help you help patients in the future. 8 to 15 years average between symptom onset and diagnosis for narcolepsy. Over 50% of people with narcolepsy are currently undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. 1 in 5 Americans lives with a chronic sleep disorder. Resources and support available. We have a national helpline, Project Sleep. It is free and confidential. Emma has a bunch of information out there on a table. And I was a trained speaker through the Rising Voices program. And we have a survey that Emma will give you. And I just want to say, we have our work cut out for us. And I'm so excited because there's not a better time. We have technology is catching up with this. We have all these new treatments that are coming out, and people are hyped and encouraged and ready to do it. So let's take it on. Okay, yes.
Anybody have any questions?
She has a question over there. To check for to check for the HLA. Yeah, I had that done in Stanford Narcolepsy Center right after I was diagnosed. I do carry the gene for it. However, that's really only for people with type 1 narcolepsy, cataplexy. There are a lot of people with type 2 narcolepsy who don't carry that gene and they don't have cataplexy. Yeah, and just because you have that gene doesn't mean that you'll develop narcolepsy either. It has to be triggered. I think you're at an increased risk of developing it, but you can have the gene and not have narcolepsy, and you can have narcolepsy and not have the gene, but I do carry it. And you inherit it from one of your parents. Yeah, it's from one of my 2 parents. Yes.
Hold on. You know I talked to that girl. You get on the microphone. 2 questions actually. Number 1, how are you doing now? And 2, if you don't mind, what medications do they have you, especially not tonight?
Okay. Yes. Now I'm doing pretty good. As good as I can be, I think. I take Xywav at night. I was on Xyrem, but the high sodium content gave me water retention and joint pain. So I took that for 10 years and I took like half the dose of it so that I could still, it made it so that I didn't have my hallucinations. I didn't have sleep paralysis. My cataplexy was fairly under control. But that was good enough, you know, without as bad of the side effects. But now I'm on the full dose of Xywav and it helps quite a bit. Yeah.
What are you taking in the day?
During the day, I take Focalin and I take Modafinil. And I take 3 naps a day sometimes. Yeah, usually naps. I found, honestly, it took me years, but I thought taking naps was me like surrendering and letting narcolepsy win. And I finally just had to realize that like narcolepsy is part of me. I'm fighting myself. That's dumb, you know? And once I started taking more naps, everything was better. Everything was better. So I can take a nap in like 15 minutes most of the time and wake up and I'm a totally different person. And I found that if I don't wait until I need a nap and a nap is going to take me, that I just start taking a nap as soon as I start to feel a little sleepy, then I do better. I've learned a lot about my brain and my body. Like, I think that everybody who has narcolepsy, there's something that they can probably do that helps them. You really have to find something that you're very interested in because it stimulates your brain. So like when I drive, I have playlists that I listen to that I know all the words to, and I sing along. I'm like a one woman carpool karaoke. It's unfortunate for like my husband or anyone else who's in the car because I'm not a very good singer, but it helps because if I start stumbling on the lyrics, it's an indicator to me that my brain's getting sleepy before I feel sleepy. That gives me a few minutes extra to pull over and find a safe place to take a nap. So
How is your cat back attack?
now I hardly have them at all. I will, if I'm doing game nights with my family, I will absolutely, like my head will drop and my hands will drop if I'm laughing really hard. But that's about it. And it's very rare. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.